Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul. We're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
Making sure that individuals are reaching the goals they have set for themselves. That's one of the many goals of Assured Health Services. If you're looking for a residential care provider or searching for ADS services, Assured Health is your go-to place. Assured Health, helping others succeed. Learn more at assuredhealthohio.com or call 419-442-8066.
Retention and culture are massive topics. I'm not going to solve all your problems in a 3-hour workshop. I wish I could, but I don't have the magic wand. Just like I don't have the magic wand to double DSP pay, even though they truly merit that. So we're going to talk about the tip of the iceberg today. However, you are going to come away with things you can do. We're very big on providing you with actions that you can do to improve your retention and culture. Those of you who saw last month's workshop, you're all struggling right now with the find them, get them, and keep them. And of course, today I'm going to be focusing on keeping them. Right now, you have this, either maybe a large pool of applicants out there, or maybe it's sort of like a little kiddie pool of applicants. For the purposes of this diagram, the orange icons are the people who would make great DSPs. So right now, you get this mix of applications, they ghost, maybe 4 of them show up. You hire the 4, but we've had so many HR directors say, yeah, Craig, Scott, we just hired 4 people, but we know 3 of them won't be here at the end of the month. So that leaves you with 1 good DSP. Okay, that's good, but that DSP starts stepping up, taking extra shifts, maybe has conflict with the supervisor, whatever, and suddenly they're a not so good DSP. They leave, and you're right back to where you started. That's a linear process, but in truth, it's a vicious cycle of find, get, keep. But even that's missing some words, because you hope to find a DSP, you get ghosted, and you keep losing them, which we branded the DSP hamster wheel. Anyone feel like they're on the hamster wheel? You're not alone. It all comes from McDonald's mindset. When Scott and I first started in this over 6 years ago and started interviewing providers, we thought you were all reading from this. It's like, what is this? They all get a script. Somebody calls and asks them what's going on. You all read from the same script. We're competing with McDonald's. The pay is similar, and you have to be responsible for someone's life. Who here has said that, thought it? Maybe you substitute Amazon, Walmart. Anybody? Okay, yeah. All right. You have a superpower that is the antidote to the McDonald's mindset. And you will hear me repeat this phrase over and over. The person-centered perspective. You all are wonderful at supporting the people you serve. You know how to look at their needs, how to adapt, how to overcome obstacles, challenges. You don't get hung up on those circumstances. All we're asking you to do is apply that same person-centered perspective to your applicants and your staff. And I'm going to help you do that. So when you start applying the person-centered perspective, now, based on last month's workshop with Scott, you should be attracting better quality candidates, pulling them toward the front, which means you get, my clicker's going a little mad this morning, you're getting more applications and a higher percentage of potentially quality DSPs. So you hire more, you're still going to get a few who find out that, hey, this work really isn't, I'm not cut out for it. And that's okay. But hopefully in the end, you end up with like 3 really good ones and you keep them there. So when you're doing this, you're creating what we call the DSP magnet, because of course the DSP magnet, a magnet, what does it do? Attracts. What happens after it attracts? Holds on, right? Yeah. And it can also repel or ignore things that aren't a good fit. So when you have your recruiting, retention, and culture all working in harmony, that center overlap is what we call the DSP magnet. So I just want to emphasize again, when you hold this McDonald's mindset, it's going to keep you on the DSP hamster wheel. When you apply your superpower, your person-centered perspective, This is what's going to help you create your own DSP magnet. And by the way, I forgot to mention, for any of you, if you want to take a picture of a slide, fine, go for it. But these slides are available on the website, so you can download them later, let them reside on your hard drive forever without ever looking at them again. I know I've done the same thing. So, all right, let's start with retention. And as Scott probably told you last month, for us, retention begins with your very first contact. We want you to start applying your person-centered perspective from the very first time you interact with somebody right on through the first 6 months. And yeah, I know you want to keep them longer than 6 months, but for us, retention's day 1 through 6 months. After 6 months, that's where culture takes over. All right, so when we're talking about retention, we like to use this coffee mug. Imagine you have this coffee mug. The incoming coffee are your recruits. The cup is your organization, and that hole at the bottom is your turnover. You have people that believe in 2 different approaches when it comes to retention. The McDonald's mindset is, look, just get me more people. Just get me more people. Have any of you ever heard from like supervisors who, when you go and ask them, how come this person quit? You're not getting me the right people. You just get me more people. Get me better people. Does that resonate? Okay. Well, the problem with that is, get me more people. Retention, we'll let HR worry about that. That's somebody else's job. So the McDonald's mindset, you got recruiting is the number one thing. And if you look in the corner there, retention just sort of like, yeah, later, we'll get around to that. Somehow they think more recruiting is magically going to solve that turnover problem. I don't care if I have a tanker truck full of coffee. Do you think I'm ever going to fill that cup with that hole in the bottom? I don't think so. All I'm going to do is make a mess, burn myself. So the McDonald's mindset, recruiting first, retention second. So you never quite get working on retention because you're just exhausting yourself recruiting people. You're wasting resources, time, energy, and money on training new people. And why are you working so hard to get 10 and you're just going to lose 5 anyway? That keeps you on the DSP hamster wheel. When you're person-centered, it's retention first, and we accept the fact retention is everyone's job. It's not Jennifer's, it's not Julie's, it's not Tony's. It's everyone's job, the entire organization. And then we'll focus on recruiting because we've got to keep the people we're hiring. You go through so much effort to onboard a new DSP, put them through training, get them started. It's heartbreaking when you lose them, not to mention the financial consequences. So the person-centered approach is retention first, with it being everyone's job, then recruiting, because once you learn how to keep people, you also learn more about them. You learn more about the type of people you should be recruiting. So the advantages are you're going to hold on to those good people you recruit, and you're going to save money on turnover, overtime, recruiting, and also that mental exhaustion, frustration, and negativity that comes with, what do you mean they didn't show up for work today? So again, that we're trying to work toward getting a DSP magnet. All right, I just showed you the coffee cup. First exercise, this is a real simple one, 1 minute. I want you to write down the name of someone in your organization that you will share that coffee mug image with. I can't tell you how many times we've run into organizations where somebody said, don't worry about retention, we just need to recruit better people. Anybody here have a problem with getting too many good people?
The Reliable Drug and Alcohol Testing Clinic is a leading provider and convenient source of pre-employment and occupational type testing. Their clinic provides services to a wide range of private businesses, healthcare facilities, and municipal and county courts. Reliable is an independent, locally owned clinic. As a result, they provide their services at a lower cost than the major hospitals, have faster turnaround times on test results, and eliminate the long waits typically incurred at these larger facilities. To learn more, visit reliabledrugtest.com.
All right, so let's talk about retention. You may hear me mention Brandy Body of Licking County. We did a series of 4 workshops for their providers. We now do it in 3. but they found that their turnover went from 68% to 28% in a year, and their retention based on keeping people 6 months or longer was up to 83%. Even more recently, I mean, I will admit this hit sort of before and just the very beginning of the pandemic, but we've had providers going through this tell us, like in the last quarter, we've reduced turnover by 25%. So, you know, again, I know the world has been crazy the last 2 years. That's a circumstance beyond our control. We still have to work with it. But you can succeed by using the things we're going to share. So where do you start? You knew it was coming, right? Person-centered perspective. So how do we apply the person-centered perspective to the people we're onboarding? When do you check in with staff? Show of hands. 30 days? 90? 180? All right. When do you think somebody new feels overwhelmed? How many think they feel overwhelmed in 30 minutes? The truth of the matter is and I've had providers saying, oh yeah, we check back with them after 60 days to review their paperwork. Ooh, I feel all warm and fuzzy. They're going to check back with me and critique my paperwork in 60 days. We want to catch people when they first start feeling overwhelmed. That's where our person-centered perspective comes into play. So this is the first exercise, and this is super important. I would encourage you, we can make a more comprehensive version of this available to you on a Google Doc. I'll share the link shortly. But I would encourage you to use this new employee experience for every step of your process, whether it's interviewing, recruiting, onboarding, on-site, your own thing. This can be really powerful. This is how Brandy and everybody in Lincoln County did it. I want you to all think of the name of a person. Okay, I thought so. Well, what? Okay, one of the first workshops we did, we started with this exercise, and one woman said, hey, I'm brand new here. I've never been involved in interviewing or onboarding. Can I use my own experience? We said, perfect. What was it? Well, I was interviewed at a residential site. So I went there and we said, pause. How did you get there? Were you familiar with this neighborhood? No, but they sent me an address. So that's what I used to get there. I used Google Maps, except Google Maps got me lost. Now imagine that. You're going to an interview, and we said, yeah, well, you knew who to call, right? Well, no, they didn't give me a phone number. I didn't even know who was going to be interviewing me. How would you like to be in that position? Anyone like that idea? All right. So if I were doing the exercise with you, and I'm using this woman, her name is Carol. I want you to think about someone, whether it's interview, training, anything else. I want you to think of a person that you've interacted with, new to your agency, that you've helped them in some step in getting them on board and an effective DSP. So just write down the name. We're always going to be person-centered. I want you to be specific. So step one, write down the name of somebody that is new to your organization that you've interacted in whatever you're doing with them. So in the case of my example story, it was Carol. In her case, it was interview, but it could be orientation, training, an on-site visit, could be something else. So please check the appropriate box or write in other and what it is. Then once you've done that, the next step will be what happens first and how is this person feeling? So if we were doing this for Carol, her GPS got her lost on the way to a site she'd never been before. And I'm sure you've all experienced that residential settings can be really confusing at times. Some houses have numbers, some don't. I live on a street where I'm on the side of the street with even numbers, except there's one house on my side with an odd number. So you just never know. And then, person-centered. We want to apply our empathy. How was Carol feeling? Was she happy, neutral, unhappy? Or the first time we did this, we only offered those 3 emojis, and somebody said, where's the deer in the headlights? We added the panic emoji. You know, if you want to put angry with little horns or the poo emoji, go for it. Creativity is rewarded. So write down what happens and put in the little face for the emotion that that person is likely to be experiencing.
THS Remote Supports is clearly focused on improving independent living through dynamic and personalized services. Their systems have been carefully developed and perfected to ensure that everyone receives the best care through the least intrusive means possible. Located in Cincinnati, Ohio, they've spent over 20 years providing in-home supports to individuals with disabilities. If you or someone you know is looking for a remote service provider, go to thsrss.com or call 513-882-9088.
Our very first client, when we first found out about the DSP crisis, that we said, okay, who is the DSP you would clone? If you recall, last month, Scott walked you through a cloning thing. And they said, oh, well, that'd be Kenneth. And it's like, okay, tell us about Kenneth. Oh, he always has a smile on his face. He shows up to work on time all the time. If somebody needs a weekend off, he'll always fill in for the call-ins. He's just fantastic. I know I got to talk to him and he said, hey, my first day there was like a kid in a candy factory. I couldn't believe I get to do this work. I love it. So they're telling us all these wonderful things and you could hear it coming, this but. At that time, they had an 18-page PDF application on their website. Kenneth he's now retired. He wasn't real strong at paperwork. So they actually, just what you talked about, Elena, you came alongside and helped him through that process. Think about it. If they'd simply told Kenneth, hey, download the 18-page application from our website, fill it in, bring it back, they would have lost out on the DSP they would clone. So they, by having him come in and walking him through the application, just as you described, Elena, and you said, you helped him and now he's a successful DSP. That's what can happen with this person-centered perspective. It's so easy for us to fall into the habit of just fill out our application or fill out those, 150 fields. And I always talk, so much of applications are based on experience. We talk about certifications, things like that. Do we ever stop and think about that 18, 19, 20-year-old who recently graduated, maybe doesn't have a lot of work experience? We want to be person-centered. We've got to accommodate them as well. So thank you, Elena, for sharing. All right, back to the McDonald's mindset. We all say, we can't keep it because, the pay sucks and there's 45% turnover. Yes, the pay does suck. But I don't have the magic wand to control that. If I did, DSPs would get double, maybe even triple, because the value they bring to people. In turn, the value when they support people, the value those people can then bring to our community, holding down real jobs, providing real services. That's, something that benefits us all, but we don't look at it. And of course, we hear the complaints, 45% turnover, except it's the national average. According to the Bureau of Labor, turnover across the country right now is over 60%. And in professional business services, which probably pay a little bit more on average than a DSP, it's over 70% turnover. So it isn't just the pay. I already mentioned, we have this mindset. 3 out of 4 won't last a month. Well, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're either hiring the wrong people or we're not applying our person-centered power to make sure that they stay, so they don't become another statistic. And my favorite, they'll never. These millennials, these Gen Xers, they'll never. Now, if I came to one of you and said, hey, Tony, this person you support, they'll never succeed, you jumped on my throat, right? And deservedly so. So how come if it's wrong for me to say they'll never, put a limitation on one of the people we support, how come it's okay to say they'll never about the people that we're trying to hire to help them? Those are negative mindsets that just become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the 3 out of 4 statistic came from, for example, the very first HR director we ever interviewed. And he mentioned they were a large organization. He mentioned that in areas where the supervisors take their time for training, turnover is only about 35%. This is 5 or 6 years ago. But he also knew they had some supervisors just ran people through, hey, you just had the training figure it out. I'm going to throw you in the deep end of the pool because I don't want to invest a lot of time if you're just going to leave in a week. That's not very helpful to you, is it? Yeah. And it's understandable. I'm not picking on supervisors. It's frustrating for them to have the trainee of the week. So, we want to look at onboarding and training through the eyes of the new employee, person-centered perspective. Now, it's hard to train. I accept that. All the documentation, all the rules, all the regulations, all put there for good reason, for safety considerations, but not necessarily person-centered or warm and fuzzy. So imagine if we were, imagine I had an exercise right now. Okay, we're all going to draw now. I'm pretty sure you could all draw a circle and an oval. But then if I say, okay, now that you've done your circle and oval, just draw in the rest of the owl. That's what a lot of the training looks like or feels like to that new DSP candidate. And let's face it, a lot of DSP candidates, if they were really good at reading documentation, going through all this laborious training and everything, they might have gone on to college or some other career. For the new DSP, this is what it's like, stepping off the cliff. So how do we bridge that? It's through better communication. So how can we communicate to make this easier for the DSP to come across that bridge faster and easier? I'm going to use the example of Legos. Yes, I'm talking about those brightly covered bricks that hurt like the dickens when you step on them. I know I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old grandson. My son Scott's house looks like the TV show Lego Masters. I think they have as many bricks there. But when the boys come over to our house, down to the basement they go, and it's Lego time. And somehow they always end up with leaving Legos on the floor. So imagine I said, okay, we're all going to do a group work exercise. I want you to go to Target or Walmart or whatever and buy a Lego set. When you go down the rows, you're not going to see plain brown boxes that say train set, spaceship, lunar lander, Death Star. No, they have a brightly colored illustrated box that shows you what the completed thing is, the outcome, where we want to be, what we're going to end up with doing together. And then also when you take that and get that Lego box home, if you haven't bought it recently, you don't just dump it out and, hey, all 3,000 bricks there with a little note, you got what you need, good luck. No, instead they have numbered bags. And the instruction manual barely has any words in it. You just take bag 1, open it up. Please keep your seats in the upright position. You open up bag 1, put those pieces together. Open up bag 2, put those pieces together. Then generally you're fitting the assembly from 1 to the assembly from 2, and you go on. So it makes it real easy. So once we have that initial, oh, okay, this is easy, it builds confidence. It helps us move through training, or in this case, the Lego set, better. So what we'd like you to do is manage expectations and guide like Lego. Explain to the new candidate, the DSP, this is where we're going, how we're going to get there, along with you, come alongside, what the next step is, and how we're going to put it all together. So communication, I know it's like the stuff from DOD or whatever training you're using or the rules and regulations that have been reviewed by umpteen lawyers. They're not really particularly exciting reading, are they? So it's like long text, try to edit it. If nothing else, just is like, okay, this is what this means. One of the best contracts I ever saw was they had a preamble to it. Okay, the lawyers make us do this contract, but here's what it boils down to. You do what you say you'll do, I'll do what I say we'll do. If we have to look at the contract, we're all in trouble. So anything you can do to edit long text, or at least clarify what it means. I mean, you get into MUIs, UIs and stuff. It's like, anybody confused for your new candidates, your new trainees, with the difference between a UI and an MUI? I mean, a lot of this stuff gets really in-depth and it's very hard to understand. So if you can clarify it. Or we all carry a little movie studio in our pocket or purse now called a smartphone. If you have somebody who's really good at explaining it, just have them record a quick video and create a video library that people can refer to. So that if they're suddenly stuck on third shift and the supervisor isn't there, they have something they can look back on. So, let's face it, from the perspective of a new trainee, it's information overload. Go there, do this. Did you get your TB test? Have you filled out this paperwork? Have you got this certification? Everything. It is overwhelming. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And then, Elaine, you mentioned it with all the little question marks, the doubts, and I'm going to go into that more shortly. So let me ask you, are you adapting to staff how they communicate? Think about it. We're really good at adapting communications to the people we support, many who are nonverbal. Maybe they need an iPad to communicate. Maybe maybe they can't be touched. Maybe they don't like to be touched. We adapt to whatever their needs are. Are we adapting to our new staff and how they communicate?
It's good to see you again. We can kick back now. The show has reached the end.